Hey everybody, Andrew from American Musical Supply here, and I'm very fortunate today to be joined by nine-time Grammy winner Darrell Thorp. How you doing, Darrell?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thanks. How have you been during this time? I know we were just chatting. You said you've been pretty busy, doing a lot of work.
Fortunately, the past couple of weeks have been pretty busy for me. I can't complain. I just keep hope it keeps going.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been
So we'll see.
a big kind of shakeup in the industry, I guess, with everything that's going on.
Yes, yes, it has
So, wow.
for
Well,
sure.
thank you for joining us today, and just wanted to catch up with you a little bit, I guess, and just chat a little bit about a few different things. And
Okay.
first off, I was just wondering if you could share with us, like, how you got your start in recording. What is it about recording that made you say, "I want to do that"?
I want to do that. When I was younger, when I was listening to records, I was always intrigued by the mysterious nature of how a record was made, and so um I sort of just got the bug of being a recording engineer. At the same time, when I was younger, I mean, I am a musician, but holy cow, I'm a terrible musician. I'm the worst guitar player that's ever walked the face of the earth. And I had hopes and aspirations of being a musician and a guitarist, but then it never clicked for me. So I sort of turned my focus of artistry from musician to engineering because I enjoy the technical side of it, and I also enjoy the artistic side of the game. So that's how I got my start basically.
Gotcha. So was that something for you where you found a position, maybe interning somewhere, or like I guess that more like traditional apprenticeship
Oh,
type role, or
yes. I guess there. So what I did was there's several ways to skin a cat in the entertainment business or in the music business. So what I decided to do was I decided to go to a recording school, and I'm from Arizona. So I went to the Recording Arts of Sciences in now Gilbert, used to be in Tempe, Arizona. And it was a shorter program then. It's kind of grown since I was a student there in '93. But the great part about the program was they made a lot of relationships with recording studios, labels, post houses, all over especially in America, but as well as the world. So they were actively keeping in touch with studios, labels, post houses, blah blah blah. For hey, got a bunch of graduates coming up, got a couple guys that are really smart. They want to do recording. You got a spot, and so they would line up interviews, internships, and you would go intern at a studio or a post house for a set amount of time, and that was part of your graduating curriculum and with the hopes that you would land a job. And that's what I was fortunate enough to do. I moved to LA and I got an internship, and I interned for like a month, and then the studio hired me. So as a runner.
that's cool.
So that's how I got my foot in the door, literally.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
um,
so many. I guess there's so many different paths these days, but having somewhere where you can get connections is so important.
the correct, yes, because I do get cold calls from people going, "Hey, I want to get a job in the studio." I'm like, "Oh man, I don't know what to
Right.
tell you." uh, so
I gotcha.
um, yeah, yep.
Well, you some engineers, I guess, typically seem to work within just one genre, but you've got a roster that, like, and credits that span many artists.
Genres.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
many genres. So
yeah.
what is it about your approach that allows you to kind of be so fluid, I guess, and move between
What's my
these genres?
secret?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the
I
secret
do not.
sauce?
I don't know what the secret is. It just happened that way. But I will say that when you look at my credits, you're looking at my credits as far as like being a staff engineer or a staff assistant at studios. So when I was younger in my career, I was definitely doing a lot of
Hmm.
hip hop, R&B type of stuff. And then I slowly moved away from that and more like the traditional term of a rock studio. And from one studio to another, and then finally landing at Ocean, that was then Ocean Way, and that was where I feel like I really cut my teeth as an engineer and got up and going as an engineer, and also that was the last place that I was employed by, and met a lot of my current clients at Ocean Way as well. So a
Gotcha.
big, I think a big part of that was just my not sort of jumping ship, but just working at 4 different studios in my career to broaden my horizon of what kind of clientele
Yeah.
um, I could get acquainted with and work with closely. So um,
How valuable do you think that is for people that are coming up to be able to work across multiple genres and have
I personally
experience, I
think it's,
guess?
well, I think it's valuable. I think it's very valuable because I don't think that one, like, like I'll say this, I thrive in the area of singer songwriter, like Beck, that kind of thing. That's my forte, where I find it the easiest to work. Um, Extremely hard in the rock world. I find it doesn't come easy to me. I don't know if it's supposed to or what. I find that I'm happy with the results that I achieve at the end of the project, but it doesn't come easy. I have to work very, very hard at it sonically to get it to somewhere that sounds big and huge. And at the same token, like R&B and hip hop is a whole other mindset. And when I do work in that genre, which isn't that often, kind of under my breath, thank God, um, because of it's not my forte, and I
Right.
really have to. It's just a different thing. And so when I hear other engineers doing R&B or hip hop, I'm always just, especially guys that are freaking good at it. I'm always like, dude, how do you do that? It's just insanity what they can achieve sonically. But at the same token, I think that it's never a bad idea to learn techniques of how a typical hip hop or rap album is made, and sort of maybe take that a little bit and approach it to a rock thing. I
Hmm.
think there's something to be said about mixing up genres like that, kind of blending to make, or maybe, hey man, you never know, you might help create the new Billie Eilish sound. I don't know, by
Right.
doing that. So it is a thing, and it's very much an interesting factor to keep in your head at all times
That's
as an
cool.
engineer.
Wow. That's interesting to me that you were saying that with rock, it sort of seems like you kind of have to really, work, I guess, for it. Like, cause you've done some pretty, uh, you know, pretty big rock acts, like one of them being the Foo Fighters, and
Yeah,
especially their new
yeah.
album, which you engineered. So, how did you get connected with them?
So what are we talking about? What was it? 2016. So starting in 2016, they were starting to make their ninth record, and they were talking to a producer, Greg Kirsten. And I know Greg through Beck. Uh, and so when he got the gig, which when he got the gig, he immediately just said, "Oh shoot, I need an engineer for this. Like, I need a real engineer." And not that I'm a real engineer or anything, but the approach to the record was going to be kind of massive. So he just said, "Well, I need somebody that really, really knows their way around a studio and can kind of handle this monstrous task undertaking that we're trying to go for." And so he called me and he asked me, "Are you into it?" And I said, "Yeah." And then, funny enough, Greg told Dave, and uh, Foos and Beck are managed by the same manager. So Greg told Dave, like, "Oh, this guy Darrell, he works with Beck all the time." Okay, so manager, who's this Darrell guy? Oh, he's great. He's really good. Okay. And within a couple days, I'd won Dave over sonically. so to
Wow.
speak. Um, um, he like 2 or 3 days into the session, we started the first song, and he goes, "Darrell, make me a rough." I'm like, okay, I made him a rough and gave him a CD, and then he was like, "Darrell, it sounds so good in the minivan." Like he took his kids to school in the minivan that morning. So the
That's
biggest
awesome.
compliment.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
guess it passed the minivan test.
Right.
That was literally the first thing he said to me that morning.
That's so good. So when you're recording, a band like them, like the Foo Fighters, I mean, their sound is so dense, especially with the guitars.
Yeah.
A lot of very kind of distorted guitars. So you got all this harmonic content like happening and coming at you. Do you approach it? Is that something where you're really looking to in the recording process kind of get the sound and print the sound so that you don't have to
Yes.
really mess with it too much later in post to
Yeah.
get it to all
Uh,
work together?
well, yes, and that's the way I try to work, and I know that's the way. In this instance, that's the way Greg Kirsten likes to work as well.
Mhm.
Um, so when it comes to mix or rough mix, it's more just you're just sort of sonically cleaning stuff up. It's not like you're doing major surgery. So yeah, we were going for sounds, drums, bass, guitars. We were going to get this is what it's going to be and this is what it's going to sound like,
Mm,
which is a hard task
for sure.
sometimes.
Is that
But
I was just gonna ask, is that something where you might have a preconceived idea of, like, how you wanna do it, but then the artist has something different that they say or
sometimes,
yeah.
yeah, sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes they can say they want to do it this way, and you're like, okay, and I try to be a team player 99% of the time, but there's times in the back of my head I'm like, that's not gonna work, but let's try it.
Right. Right.
And then hey, but then sometimes I'm wrong. Oh, it
Mm,
did work. Oh, okay, sweet, it worked. Let's go.
that's cool.
But then
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't work. So,
Wow.
but
Yeah, it's so great to hear people still recording that way, in this day and age where we have all these tools that we can manipulate it afterwards, Yeah.
they yes, and at the moment, I look at the when I'm in a big studio, I'm trying to take advantage of every piece of microphone, preamp, compressor, EQ that I can get going into Pro Tools. And then that way, when it's mixing, I can just clean up a few things here and there. I'm a huge component of just getting the sound the way I feel like it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same token, I know in the back of my mind, like, oh well, if I screw this up, I can fix it later. And there's
Got it.
been times like that where I've thought, oh, I nailed this, and then I heard it later. I'm like, oh, what was who recorded this? Like, you know, but
I'm sure that's the
because of the
minority
moment.
though. I'm sure that's not the
No,
common.
it's amazing. I should keep a tally of how many mistakes I catch myself making. Yeah, yeah,
Nah, I don't believe it. But, just transitioning over to gear, I mean, you mentioned, like, microphones and preamps and things, one mic brand that I know you're a fan and a user of is Loudon Audio. How did
yeah.
you come across their microphones? Like, is there something about them that makes you kind of be like, "I need to have this in my mic locker?"
I came across Loudon Audio with I called a friend of mine who's a dealer in Mark Venezia in Colorado, and because I had a client come to me who's a singer songwriter. He's like, "Hey, dude, I want to buy a microphone that's new, that works, and that's this price point, and that will just like all around just be like this, the desert island kind of vibe." He does okay, but at the same token, he has a just kind of stick with a budget within a budget. So I called Mark and I was like, "Dude, I don't know what's new and that's good." Um, I knew of other brands out there, but I know that the times that I've used some of these other brands, I've been like, "Ugh," not impressed at all sonically. Um, so I said, "What's new and cool?" And he gave me a list of couple of 2 or 3, and one of them was Loudon and the Atlantis. And, I I heard it, and I was immediately very impressed, especially for the price point that it is. And then I knew, Fab DuPont, who Fab and I are well, he owns and operates Pure Mix, but and now I'm a Pure Mix mentor, but also he and I are Universal Audio artists. And he did a couple demo things where he was using all of Atlantis's on drums and bass guitar, and I was like, wow, that sounds really good. Uh, so it intrigued me more. And then it was I don't remember how many years ago it was, but at NAMM I met Brian. And I just said, dude, your mics are that well. I all I said was, dude, your Atlantis is amazing and how versatile it is. And then talking to him more and more about how he was like, oh well, I made a microphone and I'm not trying to be a Neumann 87 copy or a Neumann 67 copy or a AKG C12 copy. I'm trying to do something that's in its own environment. So, and that intrigued me. Um, so we started talking, and he would send me stuff, and he would send me prototype stuff, and I would listen to it more and more. And now there's a couple of his mics that I have in a bag all the time. That anytime I do a session, I just walk in with them in my bag. Even when I'm going to uh, Ocean Way or Capitol, which they have a immense, ridiculous mic locker, I'm still bringing a handful of his mics to session.
Mm.
So
What I guess would there
a
be a
great relationship.
I'm sorry, you dropped out a little bit there.
Oh, all I said was it's been a great relationship.
Oh, that's awesome. Is it would there be one that's like your particular favorite out of I mean, obviously the Atlantis, is that still kind of the
The
one
Atlantis is
or
a pretty yeah, Atlantis is a great go-to on pretty much anything and everything. But then I'm really digging his new. Uh, I feel like I'm gonna brain fart this, but it's the LS series, which is the rejection series. The 208 and the 308s have been just incredible workhorses, especially on drums and vocals and things in a controlled live environment where you're doing live tracking, but in a studio, so it's controlled, not live on a stage environment.
gotcha.
Just the rejection on those mics is just insane,
Mm.
especially on drums. It's
R-
crazy.
right. That's such a I guess a weirdly a unique idea in the musical instrument space of creating a product that does something new, because so many people have a demand for something that's old or doing something
Yeah,
that
yeah. Most people are just trying to reinvent the wheel in modern packaging
right.
and way less money, which I get.
Right.
Which I get.
And what in with that in mind, I guess, like when talking about these mics, is it that these mics give you something that the other mics don't? In terms of, or is it just more that it's like, no, I just like this flavor of it.
Are you talking about like between something new and modern or
Yeah.
vintage?
So say like between like Loughton's mics and something that else, maybe like a studio staple, like an 87 or 67 or C12 or something like that.
Um, the one of the biggest reasons for the Loudon audio thing is I've talked to Brian a little bit about this because I've been very curious about it, but I've always said like, dude, your mics have this upper mid scoop to them, which in majority of what helps the cause. Um, I think that like a Neumann 87 has its place in life, and as much as I do enjoy an Norman 87, there's certain situations or a couple situations where it does work for the environment, but however, it does have an upper mid point to it that, to my ear, I don't care for. I think other people do like that, but I want to be able to take a guitar amp that's just loud as shit and then turn it up loud as I can in the mix where and make sure you can listen to it where you're not
Right.
wincing. Um, in the past, I've done that with EQ or multi-band compression. But if the source itself is very upper mid pushed, and I can just put an Atlantis on it and it tames that upper mid down for me, but it still sounds open and bright and it also still sounds big, then it's the mic. I'm just letting the microphone do the job for me, which is great.
Right, for sure. That's
Um,
cool.
and and
Some
that's
great.
one of the reasons, and that's the big reasons of for that I keep an Atlantis in my bag when I'm walking into the studio.
Right,
It's
right.
that very reason right there. Uh, I'm not a big, even though I mess with mid range in recording and mixing, but man, most of this, uh, I find so many sources in mixing when I'm just mixing a project that just I start opening up tracks and things are just really super harsh and brittle sounding. And so I'm doing everything in my power to make them, warm them up, take the harshness out, brighten them up. Like I've I've gotten much better at it as a mix engineer, but so which as a tracking engineer has helped me really get the source right in the first
Gotcha.
place.
Wow, that's cool. That's excellent advice. That's very
But I
cool.
understand for a lot of people, it's not. You're just you're working with what you have,
Mm,
and that's, yeah, it is. It is what it is. But if you can afford to change the way you work a little bit, then you never
right.
know. It might do you justice. Might do you a world of justice.
I'm sure you've gotten this question before, but if someone's asking like, "Oh, should I get upgrade my mic or a preamp or something?" Like, what do you think is probably most beneficial? I guess if for someone who's maybe on a budget, would you say like microphone is more important than preamplifier?
I would say microphone first, preamp second. And the only reason I would say microphone is because I think you need, if you have one or two, a pair of really good mics that do a various um, uh, sources really well, then you're pretty well covered. Then your preamp from there, when you can make a purchase for the preamp, is just color or
Mm,
personal taste.
cool. Wow, thanks. Well, uh,
Yeah,
thanks so much for the time you've spent with us today. What
you're welcome.
are there anything you want to that you've got coming out that you want to talk about, like publicize, or is there any what's I guess we're all still in flux with this whole pandemic coronavirus situation, but hopefully, uh, is there anything in the future for Darrell Thorpe?
Well, we've talked about the Foos record, which I'm very excited about. Um, oh, also, I mean, I believe I can talk about it now. Last summer, I had the pleasure of recording a Barry Gibb album,
Oh, awesome.
and it was just announced. And it was literally last summer. So I've been sitting on this thing since we finished it in September of last year. So it's been for a year that I've just been like, can I say anything about this yet? I mean, come on. So they finally announced the date, and the first single's out, which is great. But it was Barry was such a sweetheart, and I I don't think a lot of people they it just for whatever reason, and I could be totally wrong. It's just sort of the way that I see it, and but I think a lot of people think of Barry Gibb or the Bee Gees and they just think Saturday Night Fever, which is exactly what put them on the map as being a household name. But what you don't know about Barry and his brothers was they were incredible songwriters who wrote so many songs for other artists that
Mm.
we don't really know that, hey, Barry wrote that. And at the same token, their catalog from the 60s and 70s is like, holy crap. I just, these songs I'd never heard before. It's like,
Mm.
what was this? He's like, oh, I wrote this in 60, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what? It's just kind of insane doing that kind of recording that caliber of an artist and working on songs that have been around since before I was born. Um, so it was a treat. It
Oh,
was a
that's cool.
really, really big treat. Yeah.
Wow, I look forward to hearing that one when it comes out.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks again for the time you've given us today, and talking about your career, and
Thank you.
also about Loudon Audio,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate it. And
Of
if any of
course.
you out there that are watching, if you're interested in purchasing a Loudon Audio microphone, you can head on over to americanmusical.com. Darrell, thanks again so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
Bye bye.